to begin by saying that I love San Francisco because I feel really fortunate living here, and in spite of all the things going around in San Francisco, there are some problems. But one of the reasons I moved to San Francisco was after reading a book called Tales of the City by Armistead Maupin. This book inspired me to come here in San Francisco and drove all the way from Arizona to Los Angeles to San Francisco many years ago. In this book, one of the characters living at a place called Barbary Lane tells her landlady, Mrs. Madrigal, really fabulous lady, how glad she found this place. And Mrs. Madrigal says, "No, dear, you didn't choose Barbary Lane. It chose you." So perhaps it's a calling for me that I am here, and so I'm grateful for that. While back, many years ago, about 8 years ago, 7, some months after the passing of my loved ones, one after another, and still in great grief, distress from mourning, sadness, I walked into a place called Celebrate Life, Spiritualist community in San Francisco, right here. What an irony, because those two words, celebrate and life, was at the time farthest thing that I was feeling and going through at the time. But since then, I found the philosophy of spiritualism just refreshingly resonated with every bone in my body. I saw no allegiance to a creed, not to a book, not to a church, but just this great life and its natural laws that spiritualism talks about. Now, like many of you, I found the religion of spiritualism, if you can't even call it as a religion, free from the chain shackles of creed, dogma, and the judgment and atonement. So does it mean that we can do whatever? As my mom would say, "Que sera, sera, sera." That was Doris Day's song, by the way. Whatever will be, will be. Anyway, just because you have a free will and you can shout, for example, "Fire, fire," in a crowded theater when there's no fire, we know better. One of the declaration of principles of spiritualism reads that we affirm the moral responsibility of an individual, blah, 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 as we follow nature's physical and spiritual laws. Let me ask you a question. Have any of you jumped out of a two-story building lately? Yeah, I didn't think so. You know better. Have you tried sticking a paperclip into an electrical outlet? Sadly, some of us have. And we learned very quickly not to mess with electricity. So, I also believe that some of the situations that we are in and facing, especially the global pandemic, what's going on, are partly due to perhaps disobeying this nature's law. We sort of got cut with our hands in the cookie jar. Perhaps we shouldn't have gone or have done whatever it is that we have done for whatever reason. See? So we have free will and we have some given rights. But this counterbalance is the responsibility. What we have is choice, and what we have is moral and personal responsibility as a spiritualist. However, there are no absolutes, and each situation must be, you have to look at its own merit. Now, before you laugh and make a judgment at that person that might have fell from the two-story building? What if that person wasn't aware of the height of the building? Or what if he was blind? What if the building had a faulty railing, missteps, or the person had the wrong knowledge of something, or the person was depressed? See, free will, or our choice, is all sort of relative, right? Some of us have little knowledge or no control over what's going on or the forces around us, especially nowadays. Therefore, we do not make a judgment, not knowing or aware of things surrounding these forces. Nobody knows. Most of us are, like me, or most of you are feeling kind of cocooned in shelter in place. Now, as you stay home, as some of the spoken words that we hear on the TV news, media, online YouTube channels, which is great for the most part, the Facebook, Twitter and all those have far-reaching consequences on our lives, our communities, families and friends, and nations, right? See, the power to sway you one way or another by repeating perhaps the same wrong or ill-chosen words can hurt you. Or even worse, it can become your altered truth reality. In a study that was done, this is way back in the 80s, at the university level research, they found the tendency to believe false information, whatever that might be, to be correct after repeated exposure. It's a phenomenon called illusory truth effect. Any intelligent, high IQ, educated, and a spiritually evolved person can all have the same effect. See, the power of the written word also has it can influence positively or negatively. We all have thoughts that are slightly colored one way or another, that are preconceived, or that are lacking in knowledge, understanding, or simply just lacking for respect for others. By the way, if some of you read this week's Power Lines, which is our online newsletter that we send out, I wrote something in there, and someone pointed out my ill-chosen words meant to be kind of funny at the time. I put, "We're the ones who screw things up and not the Great Spirit." And he said that it sounded very disempowering, which I agree. I meant to convey that we have a moral responsibility, but by using such words differently, we can have a different feeling. You never know. So I have to hand it to him for pointing that out, which is great. See, our social online society, this modern, sophisticated online society that we can influence and also place a great strain on us mentally, physically, spiritually. See, the decisions that you take and actions that you take can last a lifetime. Whatever you say or do or write nowadays online, it can last forever on the internet. Or even worse, you can ruin someone's heart and mind temporarily or forever sometimes. See, the concept of moral and personal responsibility in spiritualist philosophy is a little bit different from other religions. By accepting such ideas as free will, we sow what we reap. The cause and effect that other speakers have talked about previously. We shy away from this atonement and the thinking that we can be saved from redeemed from sin type of other religions concepts, we tend to shy away from that. So your personal progress depends solely on you at times, with help of guided, healers, spiritual healers and teachers around you, of course. But with personal growth comes group responsibility, how we act and interact with each other, friends and family, co-workers. Then comes the collective whole, the whole world, this planet. I believe spiritual development does not come with enlightenment or even trying to seek an enlightenment. And that's not a spiritual growth in my book. See, the lessons that we need comes from perhaps the quality of tolerance, love, and compassion. So especially nowadays, giving love in the time of distress, what we're going through, in the time of such great adversity and hate and dislike, not getting along, quarantine, and overcoming the negativity is basically that. Overcoming that force is that divine spirit within you. There's a little spark in you that's shining and never goes off. So once you recognize that and believe in it and know that, then perhaps you can radiate that little love to someone next to you, someone across from you, your family members, friends, over the phone. So, just like that lady from the Barbary Lane, that lovely tenant from Barbary Lane, so let us all have Mrs. Madrigal tell you, pretend that I'm Mrs. Madrigal. No, dear, you didn't choose spiritualism. It chose you. Think about that. Thank you. Thank you.